Vishwas Anand with us, and he'll be speaking on the topic building your brand with content. Vishwas is an award-winning content marketing thought leader. Vishwas has published a lot of white papers and articles for leading publications like the Tech Republic, Tech in Asia, Packing Frontiers, and a lot of other big media houses. And currently, Vishwas is working as a content marketing and communications lead at the Infosys Knowledge Institute, and he has also received awards from LinkedIn, which was the LinkedIn Content 50, Oracle Fast 100, Adobe.
So I'd like to start off my slide with this quote. So all of us have actually heard of this concept called people power, but how many of us know of this parallel universe where content power is silently mushrooming to wield its might? So if you imagine the power of multiple assets speaking that same characteristic and powerful voice of an authenticity, accuracy, and agility that is unique to any brand, what comes to mind is The Economist, Harvard Business Review, and the New York Times that have been doing it time and again. Now in India, you can all of you can actually relate to the widely acclaimed Amul ad. So hi everyone, I'm Vishwas Anand, Content Marketing and Communications Lead at the Infosys Knowledge Institute, the thought leadership and research arm of Infosys. Now the Knowledge Institute was established in 2018 to develop a deeper understanding of business and technology and how their relationship can actually create shareholder value. Moving on, now when we look at the world of content that is growing exponentially every 60 seconds, every minute in 2019, we used to think that we lived in the golden era of content marketing when any piece of content that helped solve a problem was good enough. But now the world of content is actually moving at a feverish pace to the point of being overabundant for our limited capacity to consume it. Now the supply of content has actually outpaced demand. And as you can see, during every minute of 2018, there were 0.5 million tweets being sent, around 4.5 million videos being watched on YouTube, around 4.49 million Google searches being made, around 4.4 million apps being downloaded. So this is the humongous amount of data consumption numbers for 2019 alone. And as a result, content differentiation has taken a hit. And there's a lot of noise, fake news, and alternate facts actually making the rounds. Now, let me meander into a philosophical thought experiment. If a tree falls in a forest and nobody's around to hear it, does it actually make a sound? Similarly, if a content asset is published and nobody consumes it, does it actually really make an impact? The economic value, it comes to this, the economic value of publishing content becomes zero unless it is seen, heard, and shared. Now, all of us might have experienced this. When we look at content and the way it's produced, some of you might even not wait to the count of three. So I was reading this interesting booklet called Once Upon a Time by Brian Solis, who was the principal analyst at Altimeter, and it resonated, doesn't it? Now, the important aspect is that content dissonance has actually become a reality. And I define content dissonance when content producers lose their passion and purpose while creating content. And they become victims of pandering to short-term goals, and they want to only improve vanity metrics like raw page views. And I'll come to my 3A content model in a while that I define as authenticity, accuracy, and agility. But such producers actually lose the charm of promoting thought leadership and instead create sensationalized messages to drive audiences to products and services that don't actually solve a problem. And we've seen earlier the economic value of simply publishing content is zero unless it is seen and shared. But content engagement like shares, likes, and comments on social networks has also come down by 50% since 2015. And Facebook has also made certain changes, and algorithm changes has resulted in a steep decline of organic referral traffic and clickbait style headlines. Now, what is the result? The result is that there's no correlation between shares and links. Moz and BuzzSumo conducted this, and they analyzed the shares and links of over 1 million articles. And the insights project a chilling analysis. The shares and links were not normally distributed around an average, and very few were actually hitting the content sweet spot of authoritative research-backed and opinion-forming content. Now, let's see another result. Another result is that the number of shares per article is declining for popular topics. Now, we've seen that content social sharing was down 50% since 2015. Now, a popular topic by the end of 2017 was Bitcoin, and you can see the surge in interest. on the left graph, leading to 40,000 articles being published by December 2017. Now, the chart on the right shows how difficult engagement gets, with the number of shares per article declining for a popular topic like machine learning. Now, this is my content marketing maturity curve. So it depicts different stages of an organization's maturity in content marketing. Now, the first stage is the spray and pray, as the name suggests. That is an unorganized way of creating content without a plan and any alignment to any purposeful organizational strategy. So, content is only created in an ad hoc need basis, and it may not even have the capacity to deal with even ad hoc requests due to poor execution. Now, the next stage is with a documented content strategy that is actually foundational to your content marketing. Now, getting it right to align to content marketing goals is actually essential because brand style guides, tools, and needs are important to build a process so that the production cycles can become consistent and agile. Now, passive content generation is the next stage of maturity where content producers are identified and then content is created according to an editorial calendar. Now, however, audience personas are not suitably addressed for active user engagement. So the user metrics are not tracked or done at a bare minimum, but eventually content will have to be repurposed and audited frequently to stay relevant to the current trends. Now, the next stage is the interactive content engagement, which is a more mature stage where high quality content is created at a regular cadence. And here, external influencers can also be identified and success stories created around opinion forming and research backed content. Now, internal linking also happens, which is critical for SEO, so that relevant content can be indexed. A stronger distribution strategy, together with the right metrics to measure these goals, can help with your measuring content performance. Now, the best way to achieve content marketing success is to tie it to an ROI driven strategy and understand what's the revenue generated out of every asset, who are the key stakeholders using assets to upsell and cross sell products. And for this to be effective, it's important to identify a single metric and tie it to this ROI that aligns the core value of your products and services that it delivers to your customers. And you can call this your North Star metric. For Airbnb, the North Star metric is your nights booked. For Facebook, it is the number of daily active users. So it's important to identify this North Star metric among other interdependent variables. Now, when we look at this, only this graph, only 36% of brands have a structured content marketing program. I was interviewed by Paul Reiter in Your Communications for the Red Book of Content Marketing 2018, from which this graph was taken. Now, the survey respondents were top CXOs from industries like media, BFSI, IT, and services. And it's surprising to see this. Just 50% of the brands publishing content as per a calendar, and only a measly 36% having a structured program in place. Another challenge is that only 37% of B2B marketers have a documented strategy. Now, 38% also have a strategy, but it's not documented. So how do you build your content marketing program with the right strategy? Now, it's important to identify your mission statement because this provides direction to your content marketing strategy and is non-negotiable to build purposeful content, as also to stem the tide of content that doesn't align with your brand goals. Now, content should also be prepared for different stages of the buyer's journey. And a number of times, brands try to target the top funnel awareness stage through white papers or even have case studies in the decision stage, but forget to use the consideration stage, for example, to host podcasts or webinars. Now, your target consumers are human. So, while the devising personas make it centric to solving human centric issues through compelling resources, and consistency is actually the key to sustaining this long term interest. While it's easy to ignore your competition, the fourth point, it's important to keep a tab on how they're faring to actually use those valuable lessons. And often the boardroom battle is won by owning the data and the story. And this leads to the new revenue streams, the highest in the content marketing maturity curve. Now, when you look at a modern content strategy framework, it always has an anchor theme for content alignment. And as a first step, you need to conduct a content audit and perform it so that old content is actually repurposed and made relevant for current campaigns and trends across the buyer's journey. And all of this aligned to the anchor theme. The best content by different formats, a long form or short form, is also chosen to optimize for your different channels. And you can also identify a content syndication plan early so that budgets can also be allocated. Now, once this is done, an editorial calendar plan is developed preferably for the quarter based on the marketing campaign and the go-to-market strategy. And then topics can be conceptualized for different campaigns by buyer personas and consideration stages. Now, we believe that thought leadership is actually the way forward for brands to build this kind of evergreen content through primary research and drive relevance beyond personalization. Now, you can either do it in house or you can have partnerships with research firms that can be effective in case primary research is difficult to achieve in house. The final stage is a solid distribution strategy, and the right mix is important for these paid, owned, and earned media. Developing great relationships with influencers can also help your distribution because they can be your brand advocates. So this is a concept and philosophy I've coined, true content power. Now, what today's brands need now in this post-truth digital era, a brand can actually create and protect its identity through what I call true content power. Now, if you type content worthiness in Google without the space or hyphen, you'd come across two kinds of results. Given the nature of personalization, you either won't find too many people talking about it today, or you'll find people talking about improving a website's rankings in Google or getting the maximum shares out of a particular content asset. Now, strangely, I even found an Investopedia link appearing on my first page of search results called creditworthiness. Now, what creditworthiness is built over time, I believe content worthiness can destroy in no time. And if we define content worthiness along the lines of credit worthiness, it is the valuation that determines the possibility a brand may default on their truth telling obligations. And true content power is this cascading set of brand experiences with high content scores that bolsters the brand's identity. Now, once you're familiar with those concepts, this is my 3 content model for global brands. Now, the first A is authenticity and stands for trusting the brand's integrity. The second A is accuracy, that is the specific validation of the message on the strength of its credibility and trustworthiness. And the third A is agility, that measures the nimbleness of the brand on the ability to put out information in a timely manner and reflect the true status of the brand. Now, in a study that was performed, Corn and Wool found the age of authenticity study, they found that 63% of consumers would buy from a company they believed was authentic instead of from a competitor. So it's important to stay true to your brand values. Now, which are the brands that saw low content scores? In effect, we are saying that content marketing hasn't worked for them in these specific campaigns. The one is Pepsi's Kendall Jenner ad. I'm sure most of you would have seen it. So this was not authentic in its execution and failed miserably to connect with the audience. And it led to a torrent of criticism, citing that it trivialized the Black Lives Matter movement. They missed the mark in 77% of the digital engagement around the phrase tone deaf, mentioned both Kendall Jenner and Pepsi, according to a marketing technology company, Amobi. So if you look at it, it was low in authenticity and accuracy, but scored slightly better on agility, but then the damage was already done. Moving on, the McDonald's McD stories. So McD was hoping that the hashtag McD stories would inspire heartwarming stories about Happy Meals, but instead detractors turned it into a bash tag and shared their McD horror stories. So it was a vague hashtag that was used on Twitter. Now, from fake nails to food poisoning, people started sharing disgusting experiences about the McD brand, and jokes were also made, leading to low accuracy of content. Now, McD stories was taken down after just 2 hours, so it was slightly higher on agility. But the biggest lesson and takeaway is that if you want feedback from your fans on Facebook, have it on Facebook rather than have a vague Twitter hashtag. That is one aspect.
Vishwas, can you hear me?
Sorry.
Hello, Vishwas.
Yeah, Amit. Yeah.
Yeah, so can you be a bit slow because there's some kind of breakdown in your voice at times, which makes it
Okay.
difficult
Okay.
for us to understand. So yeah,
Okay. No
that's it.
issues. No. Yeah. So I was on the so the third one is the Volkswagen's emission scandal. So they intentionally created this defeat device to falsify greenhouse gas emission norms. So authentic character is the foundation of trust for any relationship, and consumers had mistrust issues when dealing with the Volkswagen brand. So if you look at it, two of Volkswagen's basic principles, leading by example and social responsibility, were blown out of the water. Now, according to the same brand intelligence, MOB brand intelligence, negative sentiment around the brand increased by close to 2000% in the period before the scandal broke. And the findings of the Environmental Protection Agency emerged. So between this time, it actually the negative sentiment increased by close to 2000%. Okay, moving on. 1 minute. Yeah. So if you look at the metamorphosis of Citizens Bank through the 3A content model, previously they had a solid strategy, digital strategy in place. They had a simple design, they had an intuitive UX, they had a live chat, but still they were facing low conversion rates that were prevalent among millennials, and this was due to a lack of contextualized engagement. Now people were not actually completing applications digitally, and there was a high abandonment rate among millennials applying for student loans. And this was also at a time when half of the millennials didn't think their bank offered them anything special. Now, according to research, financial institutions, they won't be able to meet the unique needs of millennials unless they connect with them individually or on an individual level. Now, digital experience alone doesn't cut it, so the human centricity is important here. Now, after the 3A content model, they were able to make an authentic connection. Greater contextualized engagement was possible when a person leaves out certain information, or a one-to-one messaging service was set up to actually connect or take it forward, take the conversational thread forward. Accurate information was also sent out based on the millennials' buyer persona, and that kind of agility was created immediately. Now, what were the results? The results was that a 10% increase they witnessed in loan completions and a 136.4 million in booked loans. So this was only possible because a right narrative was being pushed at the right time, and they were able to target consumers by different personas in a very agile and consistent manner. So moving ahead to the right content marketing metrics. So this was a video that was done. So that's just the background. The first metric we look at as the top five is the production metrics. So this is the most important to me, having an editorial calendar in place to actually measure and track performance and goals along with deadlines of your team members. Now, a simple Excel spreadsheet should also do the trick. A great indicator of how well your content is performing is a rise in organic traffic in Google ranking. So that is the second metric. Your organic traffic, organic search results that are resulting in your good Google rankings, first page results. The third metric is your subscriber list. Now, the good news for marketers is that owned websites and email newsletters rank highly in HubSpot's content discovery research. This is a very important metric as well. Now, the fourth metric is your engagement metrics. Now, Google Analytics can actually tell you the session duration and the page depth to which your content is resonating with your target audience. So while your new visitors count, it's your returning visitors that count for more. Okay, so let us see how this actually fits into the content marketing maturity curve. I'll go a little slower now. So when you look at spray and pray, that's just an ad hoc approach. Uh, but when you look at a documented content strategy, that's when your production metrics come in. So you're able to actually measure these goals and track your team members by it. Then if you go by passive content generation, the next stage, that's where your organic search results come in. So people are able to understand what works well on Google and what doesn't, but it's not in a way very effective before actually understanding what engagement means and how people are interacting with your content. So that becomes the next stage where people can actually understand where your content is how well your content is performing through the subscriber list, your engagement metrics, and your return visitors. And finally, it's your ROI driven metrics through your revenue. So this all fits into that content marketing maturity curve. Now, it was quite heartwarming in the Red Book of Content Marketing to actually see content marketing rank quite highly in this chart. Now, when organizations were asked whether they want to see themselves as content brands or just push branded content, most of them, 73%, had see themselves as being content brands. And Red Bull is a great example of this, along with other examples like John Deere and others of late as well. So this is what is quite heartwarming to witness. Now, podcast is actually a secret weapon to your content marketing. So, an estimated 90 million monthly listeners are there for podcasts, and it's become a vital tool. And the Infosys Knowledge Institute has also got into podcasts recently. We've entered the podcast world, and do check us out. Do subscribe, listen, and give us feedback. So this is actually something that content marketers and producers can actually take forward to the market because of the huge market space involved. Now, as an exercise, I think I went a little quicker, so I got done. But as an exercise, I wanted you to actually look at uh, what's a new podcast in your area of interest, and then subscribe to it, go to the show notes and listen to one segment of it that piqued your interest, and then look at it from the 3A content model that I described on authenticity, accuracy, and agility, and try to understand what in the 3A's it scored well on. And then if you were to start a podcast, what is the most compelling aspect you'd look into among the 3A's of authenticity, accuracy, and agility? So you can take around 5-10 minutes just to do this exercise. It can be in any area of interest. It can be technology, business, etc. And since we've recently got into the podcast world, you can also check us out. In case you're unable to discover any podcast, you can type the Infosys Knowledge Institute podcast, and it's available on all platforms. If you have Spotify installed, Google Podcasts on a web link, anything. So, but some of the good ones are HBR's IdeaCast. You can go to the Wall Street Journal's Future of Everything. So you can check out other podcasts as well. Okay, so the people have just joined. So I'll just talk about my 3A content model first. So it stands for authenticity, accuracy, and agility. So authenticity is about trusting the integrity of the brand's messages. Accuracy is the specific validation of that message on the strength of its credibility and trustworthiness, while agility measures the nimbleness of the brand to put out information in a timely manner to reflect the true status of the brand. Now, going by this 3A model, I want you to discover a new podcast in your area of interest. Then subscribe to it, go to the show notes, listen to one specific segment that piqued your interest, and then start rating the podcast on the strength of its 3A, on the strength of the 3A content model. Now, what is it may not have scored well on authenticity, whereas it might have done well on accuracy and agility. Now, it all depends on the podcast host as well as the information put out. So you need to rate it in that sense. You can also mention why it didn't do well on a specific A if you feel it's done poorly on a specific A.
Well, can you tell us a bit more about what you do on the podcast with Emphasis Knowledge Institute? What is it about?
So Jeff Kavanaugh, Infosys VP and Knowledge Institute head, he interviews a lot of thought leaders, business and technology leaders, and it involves a lot of new trends, concepts, business insights, etc. So far we've interviewed close to 7 to 8 guests. Skylar Matson, it was an acquired company of Infosys. Wong Doodie's president. She spoke on the motherboard, uh, a community of mothers, and how brand differentiation can happen through a strong
So,
community.
so is it a mixed bag kind of a thing wherein you speak about anything that is of benefit to the listeners, or is it
Sorry,
specific
Nick.
to careers? I said, is it a mixed bag wherein you speak about anything that is of benefit to the listeners, or is it like a specific thing where you talk about careers, technology, growth,
So we pick up,
business? Mhm.
yes, we pick up business and technology themes, and we talk of any topic that is very relevant to what the guest has experience on and expertise on. So, is there a different, like for instance, we took Mukul Pandya's case. He's heading a knowledge at Wharton. That was a very
Mhm.
interesting episode where he brought out his own stories in the podcast. So it was like a challenge for him to actually get into Wharton because one of his family friends, when he was taken by his grandmother, it actually discouraged him at an early age to get into Wharton. and he eventually proved him wrong by not only getting into Wharton but also heading the knowledge division for Wharton, and it's built its subscriber base to over 3 million subscribers, I believe. So
Mhm.
it's yeah. So there are a lot of good stories out there that a podcast can capture, and people, especially in India, with long commutes. If you're in cities with long commutes, I would really suggest you to listen to a podcast and keep updated on it, because it's a good way to actually understand what's going on in the technology world, and also to probably even host one yourselves. That's a good idea as well.
Yeah, so what are your favorite ones, the favorite podcasts that you have, the ones you keep on listening to?
Okay, so I think IdeaCast is one, HP Arts. I've listened to few episodes of Future of Everything, also Wall Street Journals, and of
Okay.
course the Infosys Knowledge Institute one, which I'm closely following.
And do you think it's effective in India starting a webinar, a podcast series in India, and
Yeah,
there are
yeah, of
listeners
course,
for
of
it?
course. Of course, of course. I think India is a huge market. It's probably not tapped as much, but podcast can be that secret weapon to content marketing. That's what I believe, because there's huge scope for growth, and there are huge opportunities as well to host a podcast and get in the right perspectives on business, technology trends, etc. So nothing like hosting a podcast, I believe, and it will kick off in a big way, I believe, in India.
Yeah, which was I think your battery is draining. Can you,
Oh,
have
okay.
a look at
Sure.
it?
Sure.
It gives a
Yeah.
pop on
But that was
screen.
just a connection issue. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's better now.
Okay.
It's
All right,
1 minute.
right, okay, and so let's all the people are doing some assignment. Let's talk about more about podcasts. So how does the transition from listening to radio, FM radio, to listening to podcasts look like? How is it transitioning, and what is making the transition? Do you have any ideas about that?
Wait, can you just repeat your sentence?
So I said, yeah, I
Asking
said
was a
that
little.
people are transitioning from listening to FM radio, yeah, at least in the Western world, marks the marketers. I know about marketers personally, that they are transitioning from listening to radio to podcasts, and I know what can drive this in India, and that people consume more of knowledge than just entertained while they're commuting, or you know
I think it provides a great opportunity for learning, Mir, because while the radio captures interviews now and then, I don't think there are huge learning opportunities apart from the entertainment factor in a radio. So you have this element of learning embedded in a podcast. So even a 10 to 15 minute listen to a podcast can actually enrich your knowledge by multifold, if you ask me, because I learned a lot of things on my commutes through podcasts that you won't even get. I mean, by uh, static reading, and it's. I mean, going by different theories people talk about, it's not very effective also in a moving vehicle to actually sit and read something. So podcast is very effective, especially in India, I feel. Globally as well, you've seen the numbers, staggering numbers. I'm talking about it because I'm guessing a majority of our audience are from the Indian subcontinent. So it's a huge way to actually it's a transformational journey. I mean, if you haven't listened to one, you should listen to one, and then you will automatically listen to another, and that's why I say subscribe to one, because then you'll be updated on any one of them, or even more, depending on your interest, and then go ahead and start sharing them with your friends as well. So you're then creating that kind of a culture to blossom.
Yeah, exactly. So there's Jugal is asking about the difference between a webinar and a podcast. A webinar is a bit more of a formal setting, wherein this one
Yes.
person speaking and the others listening, wherein in a podcast it's more off the
Yes.
cuff, and the people are interacting, sharing the experiences, and they are mostly unscripted. And wherein for a webinar you have a script, you have a presentation, or you at least have something in mind. But with podcasts, you can speak about anything and you can get a question about anything. So that is how it is with a podcast and a webinar. And
And just to also
I think,
clarify, a podcast can also be in a very formal setting because the podcast we host are all in studios, and we have a very professional way to approach it. The transcriptions happen professionally, the shooting happens professionally. So it's kind of like a webinar apart from the visual aspect not being there. But the podcast is also very professional, and it's very tailored to suit different users. So
yeah, exactly. I mean to say in the sense of the content, because it's more of a
yeah,
conversational thing like we are talking now,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's how podcast generally sets in. And a webinar, for that we let one person speak, and there's not much questioning done. And with webinars, you can dive deep into concept because of the questioning and
Hmm.
digging into things. So I think we'll take a few questions by A, or if you want to continue with the presentation, we can do that.
I'm
All
actually
right.
done with. So if we can take questions, I think, depending on the time left.
All right. I'll just launch a poll before we take the questions. Just a 2 minute
Okay,
poll, so
okay.
that we also. I'm doing that right away. I request all of you to fill this you know poll, and I'm looking for the questions by then. And if you have any questions with regards to branding and content marketing, uh, we can take them. I'll give you 5 more seconds to fill in the poll.
Okay,
Five,
okay.
4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm closing the poll and go to the question and answers. So, Vishal, I think you spoke a lot about content marketing and content, and you emphasized on content used by big brands. But what about startups and small scale businesses wherein the the budgets might not be that huge. So what does a small business or a solopreneur do, for building his brand with content?
Okay, so see, the majority of your searches are unpaid. In fact, if you look at Google, the ones that you're looking at are the organic search results, and ideally, organic search results should be around 75%. Now, if and that doesn't take any kind of cash constraints at all, because you're constantly writing content in a very consistent manner, either through a blog or white papers or other points of view, and you're using it as a content engine to build that kind of authenticity, accuracy, and agility that I spoke about. So if you're doing this consistently, then you'll be able to build a brand around this, and you'll be able to be easily discoverable as well through search engines. And I think the first step is to create that kind of brand awareness if you're an entrepreneur starting up, and then move into other kinds of paid engagements as and when you have the budgets. Hope it answered the question.
Yeah. So Akshay is asking, like, YouTube is for videos, then which website is for podcasts?
So there are multiple actually. Actually, you can go to Google Podcasts. You can go to Spotify.com. You can go to Google Play Music, Apple Podcasts. So you can use any of these channels or any other favorite channels that you might have. SoundCloud. So a lot of podcasts actually hosted here as well.
So Jugal has another question. He says, we do a lot of webinars, but they are into text consulting and advisory. So what exactly can they do to make their webinars more effective?
Okay, so I think giving strong takeaways to the audience is one aspect of making the webinar more engaging. Having takeaways very relevant to the target audience or target group joining the webinar.
Swarna has a
Are they
question.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Swarna has a question. She says, "How is a podcast useful for digital marketing, like for a blogger within the health and the travel niche?"
Of course, it's a like I was saying, in India, it's largely untapped, and there's immense opportunity and scope for growth for podcasts in any area you can take. So all you have to do is to log in through a SoundCloud account or a Blubbery account or any other podcast hosting tool, and then start distributing it to any other channel. You can start writing travel blogs. You can have a podcast to go along with it, because that adds a credible voice to your blogs. So healthcare, anything. I mean, it's a huge opportunity actually.
Parth has a question. He says, "How does content marketing work in bringing organic traffic and improve rankings? Does it or does it not? And how
Yes,
it
of
can help
course.
audience?"
Of course, and like I mentioned in the first question, so a huge part of your uh, Google search results, if you're trying to make it organic through a strong editorial calendar, I think that will help you rank well on Google Google. The first step is to build sufficient content capital, and then the next step to build and have that kind of brand awareness. And then the next step is to actually use paid engagements, like I was saying for that entrepreneur as well.
So he says that Stakar says that he's seen your presentation and you used a lot of stats. How can he effectively use stats that are created by somebody else, or they have been measured by somebody else, and you can use them on your marketing materials without having a legal issue?
No, this is I've given the attribution actually. Who was that? Sudhakar, is it?
Yeah.
I've given the attribution to, yeah. So Moz,
So I
Bastomo,
think you know
they're readily available
commonly a
online.
common
They're publicly available information actually.
yeah.
Uh,
So if we commonly use something and
you need to
we
give the
have
source attribution. That's a very
reference for
important
source,
point
I
actually.
think it's
Even when writing a blog or when doing any white paper or anything else, it's important to give the source and attribution. See, you may not have researched on one particular area, but doesn't mean you can't use it without giving the source, right? You can always complement your research or corroborate your research using additional points that others might have researched on, and of course have your own points of view on it. So that is important. Like I brought out the content marketing maturity curve and other things. Those are my own. So it's important to corroborate your points using existing research.
so. Rahul has a question. He says, "What should be the frequency of posting on posting podcasts, if you have one?"
So I can't arrive at a number as such, but I think a weekly basis should be good to build enough awareness. Weekly or once in 2 weeks, fortnightly should be good enough to start off with. As the awareness increases, you'll probably have a case where there are a lot more podcast guests in the pipeline, and then you'd have scheduling issues. But then until you reach that stage, I think fortnightly should be fine.
Great. Priyaranjan has a question. He listens to TED Talks, and do you know of any podcast into the which is into the latest trends in the digital marketing and lead generation space? And I think this
So
makes
there are lots of them
advertisers
actually.
always
Digital
have to have
marketing,
this
there are
problem.
lots of them actually. I'll send the link to you because we were actually in a recent LinkedIn conversation talking about the top five marketing podcasts. Mark Schaefer's is one. Lots of them actually. I'll share the link. Probably you can share it with that specific person who asked it today.
Yes, and I also think that just to recap, I also think that we need to have a blog on this. Priyaranjan, I think in a week or two, we'll come up with a full-fledged research in this, and you can take it from there. And so for those of you who are asking about the videos, all of you would get the recordings of this webinar.
Any other questions, Mir?
I'm just looking for questions. If there's anybody who has a question, you can post it. Meanwhile, I'll share one final, poll about your experience with the webinar. I'm just launching it. If any other people who have a question in their mind can put that to us. Yes, we'll get the recording of this webinar, Lilesh. So I have a few more questions, I think, coming up on my screen. All right. Is there any podcast on marketing for non-profits, Gaurav?
That's what, like we discussed, we'll share the link, Mir. I think that would be better because there are a host of podcasts into the space. Let us share the link with them, maybe a blog post, as you said.
Yeah, and for all of you, if you want us to blog on a certain topic and research a certain topic, you can always email us on info@digitalvidya.com, and the people involved with the CRM will channel that to the marketing team, and we can blog about your specific needs. So that is always an option for you, or we'll see if we have already done a blog on that, and we'll share the links, in case you want to learn a bit more, and so I think none of you has more questions. Does anyone of you have questions? Um, I believe there's none of you who has questions. So Vishal, thank you for joining us. Thank you for conducting such
My
a
pleasure.
insightful session, and it was very knowledge based, and it was to the point. And that's it from my side. That's it from Digital Vidya. We hope to see all of our audience at the next webinar that we host, and it's goodbyes from my side. Thank you, Vishal. Goodbye.
Thank you, Mir. Pleasure. Thank you.